Next up, our next inductee is Nick Saum. Here, one of our presenters to honor Nick Saum is Ruth Ludwig Lind. Ruth was from Woolwich, Maine. I did say that right, Woolwich. And began flying balloons in '79 in the woods and hills of New England. In 1988, she was named the editor of Ballooning Magazine and the Journal of the Balloon Federation of America, a post that she held for 12 years. She then served a term on the board of directors, earned her gas rating in '99, flying ammonia with Nick Saum and the rest of the NH3 community. After retiring as a pilot, she went on to raise zucchinis. Oh no, wait, that's a whole nother story. Ruth became an auctioneer and presently serves as the president of the Maine Auctioneer Association and the ambassador of the National Auctioneers Association. Having conducted a benefit auction in Antarctica, she has worked on all 7 of the continents. It's my privilege to introduce Ms. Ruth Lind.
I hate standing behind a podium with my microphone. I just got used to wandering around. Congratulations, Jim, Eric, and Debbie. That was beautiful. You're a tough act to follow, but I'm going to try a little bit. If God wanted women to fly, he would have painted the sky pink. That was the first thing I ever heard from or about Nick Saum. You have to remember, I was up in Maine flying and I didn't know all the rest of you back then. But I had just become the editor of Ballooning Magazine, and my responding editorial was something along the lines of, "Hey Nick, what color is the sky at sunrise and sunset when we fly?" Well, not long after that, my then flying partner and I went out to Tyndall, was it, John? The World Rosy Air Balloon Championships. John was Nick's crew chief at the time, and I met Nick. And I thought he was even more obnoxious and impossible and curmudgeonly and irascible than I thought he was when he made that stupid statement. But after that time, Nick and I worked together on a lot of projects. We both were on Steve Fawcett's crew on numerous of his global balloon attempts. I remember standing in the bottom of the Stratobowl with Nick in January for 18 hours a day and just working on that balloon to get it ready. And Nick was one of the greatest MacGyver type people that I've ever known. He was a brilliant man. He was a PhD geologist. He could fix anything, make anything, figure out anything. And we would do that for 18 hours a day in sub-zero temperatures, and then go out and try to get something to eat. And what do you think Nick's comment was? "Bring me meat and potatoes. If you bring me any vegetables, you're not getting a tip." And that was Nick. And he really would. He would send the vegetables back. I worked with Nick at several U.S. championships. I was flying as a Fiesta pilot. I never did compete, but Nick would be the safety officer on several of those, some of Jim's and some of the others, and other events. One time in the middle of my flying career, I had a brush with a power line. It was not serious. Nick was the BFA safety officer at the time, and I called him up. Nick and I had gotten to know each other pretty well by that point, and I learned the secret of Nick, which is that all that bluster was an act. Nick was one of the kindest people I ever knew. And I called him up and I said, "Nick, this happened." And he didn't say, "You should have ripped out, you should have done this, you should have done that." He said, "Let's talk it through together." And we did, for a very long conversation. He just dropped what he was doing and talked to me about it. And we came to a resolution, and it was, I never felt judged by that. And I know how pilots can judge each other when we have unfortunate things happen in the air. Nick was not that pilot, unless a woman was trying to coast on her femaleness to get special privileges. He would not stand for that at all. But any woman who worked hard was a woman that Nick would respect and to support more than most other men in the sport that we ever knew. And those of us who knew Nick knew that In 2010, I had dinner with Nick in Denver, and he told me that he had just received the diagnosis that ultimately led to his death. And we discovered that night, I don't know how we never knew this over all the years we knew each other, but we discovered that we shared a love of NASCAR racing. And I'd always been a closet NASCAR fan. And so after that time, Nick and I would always keep in touch from time to time, but you know how it is in this sport, especially before Facebook, before texting, before all the things we do now. You'd see your friends at events. You couldn't call them because we were all out flying somewhere and we didn't have cell phones back in those days. And so, but by 2010 we did. So every time there was a race on television, Nick and I would be in our respective ends of the country texting each other all through the race. It used to make my husband laugh and laugh and laugh. He said, "Oh, you and Nick are watching the race together." Yeah. And I will close my comments on Nick with this. The driver that he rooted for more than any other driver on the track was Danica Patrick. All of that was totally off the cuff. Becky told me I was coming here to introduce John, so I'll do that now. My good friend John Davis started flying balloons in 1972, started flying gas balloons in 1975. He has been a BFA member since 1974, has served on the board of directors, the events committee, several times as Balloon Meister of the U.S. Nationals since 1977. He is a Shields Trauger Award recipient and has also won the Eliza Dumont Safety Award. He has been involved, John was involved with Balloon Fiesta since 1974, serving as Balloon Meister on the board of directors, president, and on numerous special committees within Fiesta. I mean, come on, John needs to be getting this award one of these days. John taught Nick to fly gas balloons, and I'm sure he can tell you about, I would not want to try to teach Nick how to do anything. John was the official observer on all of Nick's record flights and the crew chief on Nick's World Rosier Championship series of flights. So John Davis.
Ruth, thank you. See if we can get that back where it belongs. Quick little decoration thing there first. I was going to wear these today for Nick, except I got them out of the closet and found they've been in the closet too long. And you know what happens when you leave things in the closet too long? You shrink. So I have to be careful with stuff like that. Thanks to the BFA, the museum, for having this event. Ruth, thank you for the introduction, and thank you for, Ruth was the one who wrote the nomination for Nick to the Hall of Fame. And if you all haven't read it, if you get a chance, please take the time to read it, because it's a really wonderfully written document. I'd like to welcome Nick's family, and also Jim and Eleanor. Welcome and congratulations. Nick was a friend to me, a student, an instructor some of the time, and a kind of an uncle to my daughters. And kind of like you, he was a scary, you know, until they figured him out. And then when he was sleeping in the front room at our house in Albuquerque, they'd run in there and just raise hell with him. Just fall asleep. Yep. They figured him out pretty quickly. So. You know, Nick started in aviation because he was a ham radio operator. And he took a first ride in an airplane because he wanted to get his antenna on his radio up in the air so he could talk to people further away. And so that was his beginning in aviation. Geology was where he really started out. PhD in geology, took him all over the North American continent and a lot of other places. I think he was always just a step away, he thought, from finding the mother lode in either uranium or gold. And he went looking in a lot of places, and he'd still be looking probably. And with him he always had Zepp and Mice. I don't know if all you remember them. but whoever knew that a dog would chase rocks? It just boggles the mind, you know, because they would take off after rocks and you go, Nick, that's not good for those dogs. Oh, hell, they'll be okay. Don't worry about it. But geology was his first love. In ballooning, and I think I first met Nick in 1975 when he got the first cruise balloon. And in 1975, the ballooning community was not very big. And so I lived at that time in Albuquerque. Nick was in Golden, but I was back and forth to Denver a lot. When you had a little ballooning event, you know, you might have 20 people and they were from 4 states. So it's easy to see him then. I actually ended up flying for Nick with the cruise balloon several times because he didn't like snow. So if he had a job in a ski area, I was the one who got to go. And that was fun. You know, throw me in the briar patch. Didn't mind that at all, but I also ended up, as I did a few times with Sid Cutter, kind of being a bodyguard, the one who carried the bail money and kept the car keys. You know, that was one of my jobs and all of that. We had a good time. Nick and I had a good time. Nick and my wife Carol occasionally butted heads. She got so mad at him once that after a couple of years she said, "You know, I haven't talked to you for 2 years." And he said, "God, I never noticed." Talk about lighting somebody up. He had the ability to do that. I think all of you know that Nick had that special skill that if he put you out, he could come up and just find that one little nerve. It would just light you right up. You know, and there you go. But he was a lot of fun. I think one of my greatest experiences with Nick was first gas ballooning. Nick as a student had a high PIA factor. He was unwilling to accept an answer. He did not say, you know, if you said because, he said, you know, and by the time he was through, he would pick it up, turn it upside down, take it apart, look at it, reassemble it, and finally say, "Oh, okay, you're right. Yeah, that's how it works. Okay." So flying with him in a gas balloon was a real treat, but you didn't want to sleep too much when we had some longer flights because you never knew it. In the middle of the night, you'd find him over there, just kind of scooping. We're just going to, you know, he's thinking, "I'm just going to sneak up a little bit. Nobody will notice." You know, snoop a little sand out, wake up and say, "Nick, we're 1,000 feet higher than we were before. Is there a problem?" No, I was just kind of seeing what the wind was like." We already knew it wasn't going the right way. "Back down, please. Thank you." And you just, it was really fun. We had a good time with him. And gas ballooning was what probably made us the best friends. You know, first of all, if you're in a gas balloon for 24 or 40 hours, you've got to be pretty good friends anyway. But, we had a good time. That was a great part of my life with Nick. Then he got involved in nitrogen ballooning, and that got him a little bit more into gas ballooning. And then he got involved with the beach ball. And the beach ball was a little teeny balloon that he built that, I don't know, what was it, 19,000 feet? I'm not even sure it was even that big. It was a little teeny balloon. But he built it. It was overbuilt by a factor of probably 10 or 12, which is pretty much standard Nick engineering. Went on to set some amazing world records in it. As part of being a scrounge and part of being in the geology world and everything else, Nick dug up a set of gas wells in eastern Colorado that they were scraping helium out of. They had set up a bunch of filters that they were running the natural gas through. And at the end of the plant, there was a Kelly truck that they were filling with helium after they separated from the natural gas. And Nick made a deal with this company over in Burlington, or south of Burlington, to buy the gas from them. They said, "Well, if you carry our banner, You don't need to buy it, we'll give it to you. You know, it's a byproduct. We're not even paying, you know, Kelly's hauling it away for us and giving us a little bit of money, so no big deal. So we did some flights, some test flights, and then finally record flights out of Burlington. And it was really kind of fun. We had a good time. But part of it was the fact that it was just the two of us. You know, that you didn't need a big crew on a little teeny balloon like that. You could pick it up in a suitcase and carry it around, and with a little cutter basket that we used to fly underneath it. It was a great little thing. But he set some amazing records. First big one, no, it was actually the second one. He flew overnight, and it was impossible to deal with in the air. He was about to give up. He wanted to land. He was afraid to land because it was dark. And finally talked him back into going. And the only reason he landed is I said, Nick, be careful where you are. It's the maximum security federal prison in El Reno that you're headed toward. And you're at a fairly low altitude, and I think maybe you ought to get down before that. So that probably cut that record a little bit short, but he never forgot that. Nick's accomplishments for the BFA, safety programs, the propane book, the work he did on the flying handbook were all indications of his willingness to give to the ballooning community. And what he did for ballooning, a lot of us never knew. You know, he was kind of a quiet person in that effect. Bruce dealt with a lot of things. Eric had a lot of great pictures too, which have been, I love those pictures, and I think they're a great set. But I think that Nick is very deserving of this, of being in the Ballooning Hall of Fame. He's one of the quiet people. He hasn't done a lot of flashy stuff. He hasn't been in magazines or newspapers. His records are phenomenal records. I did not look. I'm not sure if they still exist today, but I'm sure they probably do, because that was a really small balloon to fly. I know Troy isn't here, but Troy ended up taking the beach ball and doing some straight gas records in that little beach ball, and that was he did some amazing work with that too. Before I left to come here, I got an email from one of my children. Heather was born in 1972, and so she got her first balloon ride when she was in a little bag carrying around. You know, I don't know if we had front carriers or not then. I don't remember, but she was the one who Nick remembered. You know, because she was there all the time when he was down flying with us. And she said, you know, please tell Nick's family how much fun we had. Because Nick really was a big part of our life. And he's a big part of our life and our children too. So I'd like to thank the awards committee for considering Nick and for nominating him, and for the board to elect him to the Hall of Fame. I'd like y'all to welcome Nick Saum to the Hall of Fame.
Oh, we got another family member who wants to come up there.
So we have a couple of family members.
Right.
Time to back up there.